Welcome to Mary Alice.
What did you do?
We are a Desperate Housewives recap podcast with me, Erin McGee.
And me, Jakub Tansey. Two best friends breaking down each episode until we answer the ultimate question, Mary Alice, what did you do?
Unless, of course, we have finished season 1, in which case, insert new mystery here.
Yes, there's a lot to unpack on Wisteria Lane.
Content warnings can be found in the episode description.
So get comfortable and let's get into this week's episode. We're back.
We missed you. Hello, hello.
How was your week, Erin?
It's been a mixed bag. Oh, how was your week?
My week was average. Pretty much the core opposite of yours.
Yeah. It's been a wild one. And do you know what? It's an honour to be here, Jakub. We didn't think we would be.
Can't get rid of us that easily.
No, you can't. I'm well stocked. I'm well caffeinated. I'm well hydrated. And I am being sincere when I say that I'm very much looking forward to this. This is going to be the highlight of the week.
Truly. We're both on our second coffee, so
yeah.
Hopefully we're going to be really here for it.
So much enthusiasm. Well, last episode we started with, it was our version of a funeral for Martha Hooper. So this one is quite the tone shift.
Yes, and not to get ahead of ourselves, but the first thing I wanted to flag immediately right off the bat is that, last week when Paul murders Martha,
yes,
you were wondering, do we think Mary Alice is like cheering Paul on in this situation?
Yes.
And in the voiceover at the very beginning of this episode, Mary Alice voiceover says that Martha got exactly what she deserved.
I clocked that too.
Mary Alice approves of that murder, confirmed. It's in the lore.
This is a Mary Alice endorsed murder.
Truly.
Can you imagine though that Mary Alice hits the afterlife, finds out Martha wrote the note, and then sees her with that blender?
She's livid.
Fuming. This episode is season 1, episode 9, Suspicious Minds, presumably named after the Elvis Presley song.
We appear to be reaching the light at the end of the tunnel that is the Gaby and John storyline.
Oh, thank goodness. Also, this episode is like the Wisteria Fashion Police special.
Oh my God, yes. Yes. From the very first scene, you're going to understand why. But we're going to save all of the Gaby scenes, bar the cold open, for the end, because the climax of this episode really takes place in Gaby's world, and I can't wait to reach it.
It's Gaby's world, and we're all just living in it.
Very that.
Except for Mary Alice and Martha, who are dead.
Yeah.
And presumably Bongo.
Mary Alice voiceover, as always, tells us that Gabrielle was waiting for her next great idea. We get a montage of her past great ideas, which are getting a bus ticket at age 15 to leave her family after her stepfather, quote, paid her a late night visit. Yikes. Seducing a famous fashion designer, which led to her modeling career. Marrying Carlos, which in turn led to her suburban life. And out of boredom, her most recent great idea, which I say with quotation marks, was starting her affair with John the child gardener, which had now come to an end, leaving her wondering, what's next?
It's a weird one, isn't it? Because this is the first bit of Gaby's lore with her stepfather, which we actually do return to. It does feel like this implies a one-time incident, whereas it feels later on that we learn that it's more of a pattern of behaviour. But also, just from a directorial standpoint, this is very much the same room, which is then changed set-wise, but the door is in the same place. I also wanted to flag that each time it's a different man who enters the room while Gaby is on the bed.
Yeah, it is interesting that all of her great ideas revolve around men in one way or another.
And they're all around her trying to reclaim power in terms of, with her stepdad, the voiceover is talking about her reclaiming the power of leaving and going to New York. The other instance with the fashion photographer is her trying to get ahead in her career, and obviously marrying Carlos. I'm going to say I hate the way this shot is set up. because I think to put an image of what is clearly her as a child in bed and then supercut it with her kind of sexily moving her legs in the stockings, I don't know if maybe it had the desired effect, because I felt extremely uncomfortable by it, by them being put even remotely side by side. I also think it's significant that, so for this, we never really hear Mary Alice's opinion on things.
Except for Martha's death.
Well, that's what I was going to say. We get this little bit at the beginning about Martha's death. And then here, Mary Alice says her affair with her teenage gardener. And I don't know why, but there is something about the diction of it. Bearing in mind that Zach is the same age as John, that feels quite pointed to me.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I don't know if it was a choice by Brenda Strong or if it was something in the writing, but I really, really enjoyed that.
I'd be so curious to know, like, when Brenda Strong was doing those voiceovers, how many takes she did and how many options she gave. Was she just a one-take wonder and, like, they trusted her? We're like, we're going to try a ton of ways. We'll figure out in editing what the vibe is. Or I'm just so curious about that process.
I would love to get in her head, but we've seen on Cameo, she can just do it. Something else, which we're starting bleak. Is that okay?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it is what it is.
It is not unusual to hear that a victim of child sexual assault can become a perpetrator of sexual assault themselves. I'm not saying that it's common, but it is something that happens, and sometimes this is unfortunately what occurs, a cycle, a bad pattern. And this is the first time that it feels like it's flagged potentially why Gaby has been attracted to a minor.
So Gaby is sitting by Mama Solisa's side, who's still in her coma, and confides in a nurse who's tending to her about feeling somewhat empty inside. The nurse says that she always sleeps like a baby, knowing that she helps people every day, just wishes it was a little less exhausting as they're very understaffed. Oh, how little has changed in the world.
I know.
So this sparks Gaby's next great idea, which is to throw a charity fashion show to raise money for nurses, which is a nice idea. Given her interaction last week with the priest, do you think that this is her trying to kind of reduce the guilt that she is clearly trying so hard to repress over, well, many things, but in this episode, primarily John the Child Gardener? I just think it's interesting that after the whole chat last week about going to heaven and hell and stuff, and her showing not remorse, but awareness of that what she's doing is wrong. Do you think this great idea is just to help her feel better about herself, basically?
I don't know. I did have that thought, but then I also had the thought of, are they setting us up to Gaby having this empty hole that can only be filled by a child? Is another thing that I thought, because of the conversation last week and her specifically saying there's something missing and I don't know what it is. And we know what Juanita's perspective is on that. We know what Carlos's perspective is on that. And I do wonder if this is the idea that they're kind of going forward with, but I don't know.
We then see Gaby now setting up this fashion show, I think at her home. She's doing some like prep work and there's people and racks of clothes and there's a lot going on, hustle and bustle. And we see her encouraging a throwaway housewife who is nervous about walking the runway in a fancy dress.
Hyping her up.
Yeah, she's in her element here. And then Mary Alice's voiceover tells us that night, Gaby slept like a baby.
Do you sleep like a baby, Jakub?
If I have, this is genuine. If I have a nice podcast on, I literally need to put a podcast on to fall asleep. I'll put like a 15-minute timer and that'll put me off.
Can I ask you what your favourite podcast is to fall asleep to?
It's usually like some celebrity interviewing someone over nonsense because it needs to not have a narrative that I care about, you know, missing what point I'm at and stuff. What do you use to fall asleep, Erin?
So there's this podcast called Northwood's Baseball Sleep Radio, and it's fake coverage of baseball games with fake teams.
What? What on earth?
And there's like fake teams like the Cadillac Cars and the Big Rapid Timbers. And I do have a favourite team. I'm not going to reveal on the pod who it is because this is deeply personal to me and I love it so much. This is my secret. This is my, I know what you did.
I am floored. Just, man, there really is a podcast for everything.
There is a foot for every slipper, baby. There is. And it's so good and so soothing. So that's what I fell asleep to last night. And I slept like a baby.
Much like Gaby.
Okay.
Then we get our theme song opening credits. And before we get into individual arcs of each housewife, there is one more scene we'll cover, which kind of like touches on a few different things. So would you like to talk about that, Erin?
Yes. So Edie is snooping with all of the clothes in all of the racks, and she sees a dress that she likes with Susan's name on it. So she obviously tries to steal it before Susan catches her. Frenemies. Helen, John the child gardener's mum, approaches Gaby, and she's going to take part in the fashion show. And she also thanks Gaby for giving John a job in the first place. Gaby says, "It's been my pleasure, and it made me feel physically ill."
Say it with me now.
Jail. Jail for everybody. So she questions Helen about John and Danielle's relationship. Danielle seems to be wanting a serious relationship when John seems to be wanting to play the field. Then Carlos comes downstairs. He's clearly doing business on the phone. It's very aggressive. Susan spots it. Susan asks Gaby if Carlos is having work problems, and Gaby says she doesn't know what the problem is. He's making a ton of money. She wishes he'd just relax. Do you think this scene is over? Because it's not.
Yeah, all of the fashion show related scenes are incredibly dense.
I feel like I'm doing like and here's what you missed on.
Very that.
Then Edie thinks that all the good dresses are taken. And Lynette mentions Mrs. Huber, which is interesting because all of the other women call her Mrs. Huber and not Martha. Edie does, though. And Lynette mentions that Martha didn't show up so she could wear Martha's option. Edie, unfortunately, feels that that is an old maiden type of dress.
I wrote those exact words.
No, you didn't. I have it in bold and in italics and in caps lock. It is an old maiden type of dress. If you don't know, please look up the footage of Tiffany, New York, slating into Gemma Collins on Celebrity Big Brother. I think we quote this once a week to each other. It's
essential viewing, and quite frankly, if you don't go out and watch it, you're not welcome here.
Edie is hesitant, saying, "You won't be able to see my body." And Lynette says, "That's so like you, Edie. You're always thinking of others." Edie thinks that Martha is off with her sister. That's the last thing she heard from her. And she comments once again on Martha's choice of dress, saying that it's odd because Martha always said she wouldn't be caught dead in black. Hard cut the black fashion bag to the black bin bag body bag. One of my observations for this episode is there are some beautiful directorial choices in transitions. So we have the fashion bag cutting to the black body bag, and we see Paul is digging. We're unsure where, but let's just talk about it. He's doing it in broad daylight. He still also has a ton of blood over him. He also buries the blender.
Yeah. Okay. Why are we burying the murder victim with the murder weapon? That is insane behavior.
It does feel like baby's first murder.
I swear he's so exhausted from digging all the time that his brain can't think straight. You say he's like baby murderer. He's buried a body before in his pool.
The reason I mentioned transitions there is because we get this shot of Paul digging and scooping and shoveling, and it immediately cuts into, at the time, Julie scooping and shoveling ice cream. And it's just really, really nice.
I love good editing.
Me too. I wish I knew somebody who could do it.
So we're going to talk about Susan now.
I have said that one of my favourite things about this podcast is listening to it back. And I'm telling you now, people at home, Jakub laughs at all of my jokes. I promise you. I promise you that he does. It's just sometimes he cuts his laughter out of it and it looks like I'm going, ba-da-ba-da-ba, and Jakub goes, anyway.
I have my reasons.
Jakub loves me, okay? I need you to know that. Anyway.
Yeah, anyway. So we're going to start with Susan's arc of this episode. So Susan is at home and shocked to see that Julie the Vampire Slayer has received a letter from Zach, who is still at the rehabilitation center?
Yeah.
A child behavioral center, whatever. But Julie seems less surprised. Julie is hesitant but reveals to Susan she's been writing back and forth with him. Susan is concerned and refers to the facility Zach was taken to by Paul as a mental institution.
I hated that.
Yikes. But Julie assures her that he just needs a friend.
And also, Susan is being extremely judgy as if she did not make Julie break in there.
Yeah. Now, this is not a great Susan moment as usual. However, I will say that this episode as a whole is the most I have ever liked Susan.
It is the most active parenting that she does, I think, or that we've seen from her.
Not even just with the parenting, but even in terms of like how she weaves into the other storylines in this episode. I'm so like, yes, Susan.
I am half and half.
Okay. I think just the bar is so low with Susan that I'm excited to have something positive to say.
Next we have Paul, who is scrubbing at his murder clothes, murder gear, murder attire. So there's a little tap, tap, tap on the door, and it's Dr. Psycher from the rehab centre who lets Paul know that Zach has gone rogue and has escaped. And this is all crazy to me, mainly because of how chill the doctor is about it.
And also unsurprising, given how poor security clearly is, since Julie easily sneaked in the previous episode.
Absolutely.
In the next scene, the doctor makes it clear to Paul that this is exactly the case, that it is a low security facility, and Paul wouldn't allow them to treat Zach properly without psychotherapy. Basically, he comes initially to be like, we're really sorry to tell you, but then very quickly goes, this is your fault.
Which I really loved. And it is important to note that the doctor has diagnosed Zach with multiple mental illnesses, but is still saying that Zach is not a threat. This is a low security facility. I just think it's interesting.
Yeah.
And it's also weird that he's doing home visits.
Well, we then cut to another home, which is Julie the Vampire Slayer's room, where we see Zach hiding out there as Julie brings him some food.
I am a little bit obsessed with Julie and Zach in this episode.
Oh, it is sweet. It is sweet. Especially because, I mean, the further into the show we get, Zach definitely comes across more and more unhinged.
Yes.
But at this point, we just see him as kind of troubled, but like we're very empathetic towards him, I think, still.
Yes, the next scene has what I'm going to talk about, so I'm just going to jump to it. Julie is emptying her piggy bank for Zach, and the reason that this is so sweet but so sad to me is this episode, these two kids just feel like two kids who are playing dress up as adults. They feel way in over their head.
Yes. Oh my God, yes, because they truly have the worst parents on the lane.
You made this observation a few episodes ago, and I think it really shines here, that Zach is dressed as a mini Paul, and Julie, for once, is wearing like giant earrings, and she looks like she's just dressing up in her mummy's clothes. Aww. They're little kids, and more interestingly to me is when they're trying to talk to each other and communicate, Zach shuts off a bit, saying, "It's better that you don't know," and she's trying to push for answers, and it's giving Susan and Mike. This, I have a dark secret, but I can't let you in, but I want to let you in, but I'm putting these walls up, but we need to learn to communicate, but I'm here. And it's Susan and Mike.
That's so accurate.
Then Susan, oh, gee, I nearly did it. Then Julie, in a bid to get Zach to open up, is saying, "I know more than you think I do," essentially, and brings out the Dana blanket. And Zach immediately gets emotional.
Yeah. And the next scene, Zach drops the lore. He says that when he was young, about 4, he heard his mom and dad yelling about both him and Dana, and he went downstairs to investigate and found them cleaning up blood, so assuming it belonged to Dana. He can't remember Dana specifically, just the blood, and Mary Alice picking him up and telling him it wasn't his fault. After that, he wasn't even allowed to say Dana's name or they'd get upset. So Julie asks for clarification over what Zach is trying to say here, and then Zach lays it all out on the table. He killed his baby sister, and his parents buried her to protect him. Julie offers Zach a hug, and it was very sweet. And then they kiss. Susan could never move this fast or smooth. No. That is where they differ.
Again, it's not... It really just... hits me as sad. It feels Julie does care about Zach, and you can see that here, and Zach cares about Julie. But even this kiss, it doesn't feel romantic. It feels like two kids who are just trying to be grown-ups, and they can't be grown-ups, and they have nobody to support them in their childhood.
Yeah,
they grow up too quickly.
I think at that age, it's really easy to misinterpret emotions and feelings and stuff. And don't you look at me like that.
Are you saying that when you're a teenager, perhaps you can misinterpret romantic feelings for someone? Is that what you're going to say?
Anyway.
If Zach's dropping lower, maybe it's time.
I think the people can put two and two together from our little tidbits.
That's so funny. Yeah, no, you're right. People you don't understand what romantic feelings are yet. So you're trying to interpret caring about people, and you're trying to interpret trusting people. And it's just a big old, dare I say, blender of disaster. We cut to a carpenter who is currently wood-whittling. And he is approached by a group of detectives who have crime scene pictures. The crime scene in question being the toy chest that the Young family buried in their backyard and has now since been uncovered. The carpenter is saying that it's a unique item and he has a list of customer names on file, so the detectives might be able to get a lead from that. But the most interesting thing to me is it is revealed by the detectives that it had a body inside. Adult female.
Yes. I.e., not a baby sister of someone.
Which means either Zach has misinterpreted something or Zach has the wrong secret.
I just love the writing on this show that it gives you that scene with Zach where you feel like you are getting all the answers.
Yes.
Just for that to immediately be torn away from you.
It's so good. And the answer straight away, which I like, the obvious question that comes with that, which is, how can an adult female fit in that chest? And the detectives reveal that the body was chopped up into little bits, as Martha Hooper would say.
Mm-hmm. That night, Susan comes home to see Paul questioning Zuli.
Questioning Zuli.
That night, Susan comes home to see Paul questioning Zuli. I think I ship Zach and Julie.
Zuli is Zach and Julie. Zuli. Do we have anything for Susan and Mike? Psych.
Possibilities are endless.
Say psych right now.
Right, let me try this one more time. That night, Susan comes home to see Paul questioning Julie.
Yay!
At their doorstep about Zach's whereabouts. Notably, not entering the threshold. Is Paul the monster of the week, perhaps?
Oh, that's a really great point, actually. I think Paul could be the monster.
I think he is. We see him literally bury one of our favourite characters, and he's being really pushy to, our bestie, Julie the Vampire Slayer. And there are people in this episode who are worse, but that's more like overarching storylines, so it's not really a monster of the week situation. So I think it's Paul.
Yes, I think Paul is a good contestant. I was going to do another suggestion kind of like, the law, but then that felt very abstract. But then I remembered that one of our monster in the weeks is the bath. So I guess anything goes, but let's give it to Paul. I'll give it to Paul.
Okay. So Paul is demanding to see the letters between her and Zach, but Julie is hesitant given their private nature.
Yes, and I agree with it.
Yeah, and Susan is firmly on Julie's side and essentially telling Paul to get lost, and I love Susan for that. This feels like good mom energy.
Yes, she's protecting Julie, but she's also being quite polite to Paul at the same time. She's just saying, my daughter doesn't lie. Obviously, this happens to be...
a lie.
A lie. This is very my mother energy, where she'd be like, I know you would never do something like that. Cut to me sweating.
Incredible. And that's it for Susan. I mean, she pokes into some other of the women's plot lines, but in terms of her own storyline, that's it.
let's move on to Lynette's arc. Tom is packing a bunch of stuff. Bear in mind, Lynette is still reminding him of items. That's neither here nor there. But he's giving Lynette a good couple of hours off. He even is being so kind as to say, enjoy the vacation. How do you think I feel about this?
I think you're like, yes, Tom, king, supportive husband. Am I wrong?
So Lynette explains that she will be doing housework and it is in fact not a vacation. And Tom just seems to have no respect for house labour unless he's doing it himself. Fine. Tom then says, I'll pick up dinner and maybe you could take a bath. I'm here all week, is what he says. So some conversations clearly have gone on since the last episode where Lynette has confessed to Susan and Bree about her dependency on the ADHD medication. We can assume that Lynette and Tom have had a conversation where she said that she needed help and Tom, as a result, has taken a week off work. I do believe that Tom has the correct intention of trying to support his wife. However, he is trying to put a plaster on an amputation, to be honest.
That's so the right way to put it.
Yeah. Lynette is bang on for me here. She's trying to get across that she can't have a week off, that it isn't a week off because she doesn't get a week off of being a mother. That's not how it works. She has so many things in running the household. She has so many things with the kids. And even if she were on the Bahamas for a week, I don't think it would be enough for what she's going through at the moment. She can't just have a week and then go back to how things were. And eventually Lynette suggests that they hire a nanny full-time. Lynette says, because everything that's happened is my fault. And Tom does not correct her. Everything that has happened is not Lynette's fault. My Lynette, sweetie, I'm so sorry that you are with this mediocre monument of a man. Someone get her away from him. However, Tom reluctantly says that if Lynette needs it, then they have to make it work. And I'm sure that there were people at home that thought, what a lovely man. And I think, what a bare minimum contribution to your home life.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I feel about that, Jakub, Evangeline.
That is great to know. So we love Tom.
Love.
Bestie. Maybe he's the monster of the week.
Tom is the monster of the lane.
Yeah. So later, after the nanny chat, we see Lynette telling Bree that she's now struggling to find a good nanny. They've had 10 interviews so far, can't find good help. So she wants Bree to tell her about her rich friends with good nannies so she can essentially poach one.
Love.
And she compares it to like stealing clients in the business world. Very on brand for Lynette.
I really, really, really love this scene.
Yes. And much like with her asking Bree for the Barcliff recommendation, Bree is resistant and Lynette doesn't care.
I don't remember when I was younger watching this, appreciating Lynette and Bree's dynamic as much as I really am on this rewatch. They feel very open and honest with each other in a way that Bree isn't with the other women at this point yet. I even love Bree saying, "Oh Lord, what do you want me to do?" It's very you and I coded, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, Lynette is a lot more direct than the other women,
Yes.
and I think that's maybe just rubbing off on Bree after spending a lot of time together.
I think Bree's also very responsive to that, and I think Bree is seeing in Lynette a woman who is not being appreciated for her household running and the emotional labour that comes with that, and nobody understands that like Bree does.
Definitely.
This lack of appreciation is really deep in both of them, I think. Lynette says, a contender for the quote of the week for me. And again, it's very you and I coded. Lynette says, after the events of last episode, where can I score some high-grade nanny? And it's so good.
We then see Lynette hanging out at a park where Bree says all the good nannies go, essentially. And Mary Alice voiceover gives us my quote of the week.
Ooh.
Which is also a Jakub quote whenever I'm on holiday with a hotel room and go out for the night. And she says, it was Lynette's first time here and she was determined not to go home alone. She then goes on to say that... Oh, okay.
I need a moment. I laughed twice. I laughed because that was a solid joke, and then I laughed again because of how true it was. I like that it says Lynette is scouting for that special someone. I don't know if I can say this, but I feel like I have put in the hours where I can compare this. This is gay cruising, what is happening in this park. It 100% is.
That, oh my God, true words have never been said. She's literally stalking the park, walking past the different nannies, making eye contact. It's like, if she's not into them, she just moves on, avoid eye contact. That's so true.
It's the gay man on Calton Hill.
It absolutely is. Episode title, Lynette visits Calton Hill at night.
Actually, I need to tell you that so I'm not going to say who it was, but we're going to both know who it was immediately when I tell you the story. So I was walking up there with Rory for our anniversary, and it was during the day and really quite early in the morning, actually. And we ran into a mutual friend of ours, Jakub, and I said, "Oh, are you here for..." And it became very apparent very quickly that he and I were seeking different things by this walk. Yeah, it is him.
Excellent.
So eventually she finds a nanny, Claire, and the string instruments are playing in the background and the music is quelling.
This is a romantic movie we're in now.
Lynette is grafting. It's so good. It's so fun.
I also love when she's walking past the various nannies on the different park benches and she's just like judging all of them for something. And one old lady nanny is fully asleep and snoring, still a hot dog in her hand. It's so funny.
What I really like about this is that this is where all the nannies are because it's kind of seen as an affluent area. The park doesn't even look that good.
Yeah, it's a very generic park.
Yeah.
It's not giving bougie.
Where is the giant slide?
The trademark of all good parks.
Yes.
Yes.
Then we change genre slightly to a woman trying to have an affair.
Yeah, she literally sits down next to Claire and says, "Do you come here often?"
Yes, it's so good. Lynette and the nanny Claire are, dare I say, having a business flirtation.
They're flirting.
They're fully flirting.
Yeah, Lynette's trying to seal the deal.
Claire expresses that she has a woman that she nannies for called Alexis. And then, as Alexis is about to approach, everything gets very secretive. Claire says, "This is where I'm going to be tomorrow." And Lynette's just going, "I want to see you again." And it's so, so funny. The nanny comes to the front of the house she is nannying at to meet Lynette. And Lynette's negotiating business skills work very well here. Lynette is offering a 20% pay bump. We don't even know how much she is being paid. And I think the nanny is negotiating back with certain, I don't do things for your friends and I don't do laundry. And Lynette's saying dishes and she's saying back only the kids' ones. And the closing of the deal.
I loved it.
It's so, so good. And it's so nice to see Lynette confident and doing something like a negotiation where she's just in her wheelhouse.
Yeah, this is what she thrives at.
Yes. Oh, love.
So we're going to kick off Bree's storyline. And Bree and Rex are at Andrew's school to watch him at his swimming competition. Andrew is there in his Speedos, and somewhere in the 2010s, 15-year-old Jakub is thriving.
Did you have a crush on Andrew back in the day?
I mean, it was, again, I was still on my journey of discovery.
Make it my ringtone, baby.
So I didn't really understand my feelings, but when I look back retrospectively,
Yes.
100%, especially with where his storyline goes.
The only thing that I felt during that beginning part of the scene is the absolute trauma of remembering school swimming lessons and the swimming caps and the boys making fun of all of the girls' bodies.
Yikes.
And
Yeah, I mean, our school didn't have a swimming pool, so we had to travel to a nearby swimming pool. And by the time you do the travel time and the changing time, you're only in the pool for half an hour. It's not worth it.
No, I say hell is empty and all the devils are at a public pool.
Very that. So Bree is still unsatisfied with Andrew's lack of remorse for putting Mama Solis in a coma and wants to punish him further than taking away his TV and grounding him. She wants to force him to quit the swim team, which Rex and I disagree with.
With you.
Yep, as it's the only thing he's passionate about. They proceed to argue until a stranger in front of them points out that their son they both love so much won the race.
Yes. This scene is the first scene of me being surprised in this episode by how much I can tolerate Rex when he's being funny. He has a great line in here where he's talking about Andrew saying, he hung out in your womb for a few months in the 80s. And I just thought it was really funny. And they do feel in this episode quite playful with each other in a way that we have never seen before.
Yeah, I guess just because all of their marital problems have felt like they've been on the back burners since Andrew hit Mama Solis. So like,
yes,
that's really not at the forefront of their mind. So they're able to have some of their older dynamic, I guess. But yeah, they're really, really not coming to alignment on this issue.
No, they are not. The next time we see Bree, she's out in the garden, and I just have a note that her hair is extra fabulous in this scene. Mm-hmm. So she's putting soil or something in the garden and sees Andrew at the window. But Andrew has been smoking the devil's lettuce.
As my mother would put it.
Yes. Bree comes upstairs and is trying to have a serious chat with Andrew, but Andrew is too high to be holding this conversation.
It's so high.
He sounds like every reality TV contestant trying to have a heart-to-heart, where he's just like, the energy and like I'm feeling and the way that we're doing and like you're over here and I'm here.
He sounds like Meredith Marks.
So poor Bree is genuinely trying to understand Andrew's nonsense until she catches the scent.
She susses out the situation.
She says, "You are strung out." Then goes into her immaculately organized Tupperware cupboards. I could never. I long to have this.
And of course she has an insane amount of Tupperware at her disposal.
And it all matches. And she marches up to give a container to Andrew because guess what, honey? We're getting drug tested. And I love it. I love chaotic Bree.
So Rex is playing golf in my favourite moment of the episode when in the distance, Bree is being driven over to him in one of those golf carts and her expression is perfect because you get the whole vibe from it. She is there with a purpose. She is on a mission. All she's doing is sat there quietly, but her expression is giving everything.
And then also thundering towards him at 8 miles per hour.
Oh my God. So she approaches Rex and presents him with the container. And can we read this interaction together? What's this?
Your son's urine.
Then he turns to look at his golfing friend. I'm gonna need a moment.
This is where, like I said, Rex is really funny this episode.
He is. She expects Rex to take the sample to work and test it as proof that Andrew should be kicked off the swim team as punishment. Rex disagrees regardless of whether he's been smoking weed or not and quickly turns it into an argument about their marriage. And it gets pretty nasty.
It gets horrific.
Yeah. Rex claims he's been pushed around for the last 18 years, been made to agree with everything, and then decides to top it off with a "Thank God you're out of my life." And then Bree opens the container and throws Andrew's urine onto Rex's crotch.
Throw piss, girl.
Episode title? Question mark? Bree throws that urine at him, telling him she was just doing the same thing that Rex just did to every memory she has of their marriage, i.e. piss all over it. And we all cheered and applauded.
Yes, we did. We all did. He says, if you were my mum, I'd smoke pot too.
Which actually relates back to the other episode where you mentioned you think that Rex has a Madonna complex.
Yes.
Because it is just showing further he really views Bree now as a mother figure and not as anything else.
But also, Eden's weird conspiracy theory observations. Rex used to smoke pot. Rex is comparing Bree to his mother. Rex is Andrew. And as you've stated before, you think Rex is a closeted gay man.
But that was your conspiracy theory. I made a joke. That was your theory.
Oh, well, if the golf shoe fits.
If the golf shoe fits, honey.
But it's just an interesting one where, I mean, I don't necessarily think that Rex is closeted or Rex is gay. I just think he's, Rexually repressed. I think there is a lot of projecting that Rex does on Andrew.
That makes a lot of sense.
What is interesting about this moment in Bree throughout the episode for me, Bree is going to punish Andrew until he suffers. That's where she's at. She has correlated Andrew suffering with him feeling remorse. And it's not going to happen. They're not the same thing. But Bree thinks, they've taken the TV away. They've grounded him. If they do enough, he will realise the gravity of what he's done. But actually, I do somewhat agree with Rex. And when do you stop the punishment?
I completely agree with Rex because Andrew is so young. I don't think he can grasp the gravity of what he did without... Bree was on something initially in the previous episode when she suggested he speaks to someone, like a professional.
Yes. That's
what he needs. And I mean, we've not seen Andrew smoke weed before, and, he does seem like the type who might do it. He's a teenager, whatever. But, this could also be a new thing as, like, just a way of kind of coping with any stress he's dealing with it and not being able to process all his emotions and stuff like that. And it's, this is not a punishment is going to solve the situation.
Yes. Bree is fully plotting. And Danielle's coming home from school. Hi, Mom. And we get the following interaction.
Hi, Danielle. How was school?
It was okay.
Good. Where does Andrew keep his marijuana?
Clearly, Danielle confesses, but we don't get to see it, as Bree actually breaks into Andrew's swim locker and finds the contraband.
I love the hard cut from that interaction with Danielle to, again, Bree on a mission. We get this shot of Bree's heels walking along the edge of the swimming pool, and she's not walking, she's marching.
And she is not wearing those little blue shoes that you have to put over your stuff.
No, she is not.
Bree finds the weed and initially goes to put it in her purse, but then has an idea and puts the stash back and smiles to herself.
Light bulb moment. I also clocked, I was obsessed when she gets to the locker. She has a little laminated card that she's brought from home that has like all the kids' locker combinations and stuff. It's so Bree.
I love that it's laminated.
Yes. I want just a scene of Bree laminating things because she has her own laminator.
Oh, yeah. I definitely am going to have a laminator at some point in my life.
I actually got a laminator for like a birthday gift from my parents at my request many, many years ago. I must have been like 13 and I was thriving.
I would have loved that.
I swear to God, I was a mini Bree at some points in my life in certain aspects as a child. Oh my God. So then later the coach finds Andrew's weed, presumably from an anonymous tip. Actually, that's confirmed later. It's from an anonymous tip. Obviously Bree. And calls Bree. It's like at home arranging some flowers and couldn't be any less bothered with the tone she is responding with. Oh, you found what? Oh, I'm shocked. Oh, yeah, I'll be right in. And she's just minding her flowers. It's so funny.
Andrew finds out that the coach has shouted on him, and he's assuming that it's about some happy scholarship news. We also learned earlier that potentially Andrew's only real shot at college is a swim scholarship. And I think that is significant because I do think that's a big part of why Rex is so determined that Andrew not quit the swim team.
Yeah. It's crazy to me if that's true that Bree would still want him to quit. And because that's essentially taking away a lot of potential for his future.
Especially if you think your child is on a bad path, to take away a path of success for them knowingly it's a little bit bad mom.
It's very bad mom. It's very Bree, but equally very bad mom.
Andrew is defending it to Rex by saying, I was holding it for a friend. And Rex is disgusted just by how bad Andrew is lying.
Even Gaby and John can lie better than Andrew in this moment.
Well, yeah, but, Andrew is only a tiny bit younger than John, so.
Yep.
And then we get a shot of Andrew staring at Bree as I think she's...
setting the dining table?
Yeah. And it's clear he knows what's up.
Bree's face expression in this moment is the guiltiest expression I've ever seen on someone. She looks like a dog that's just eaten something it knows it's not supposed to and has been caught by its owner red-handed. That is exactly the expression she's giving.
She's bongo after the earring. R.I.P. Bongo. If he could look down on us now with his taxidermied eyes, I wonder what he would tell. Let's move on to the real mincemeat of the episode.
Indeed, very that.
Which is the Gaby scenes.
We're flashing way back now to when Gaby is first setting up for this fashion show. There's a lot of hustle and bustle going on. John approaches Gaby as people continue to prepare for the charity event. He's here to volunteer at the request of his mother. Even though his mother is right there in the room, Gaby still openly flirts with him. Insane.
It's absolutely disgusting. She says, "You are always a giver." You are not, like, in this episode in particular, which I think is interesting, I cannot get out of my head, Gaby, you're a sexual predator. Gaby, you're a sexual predator.
He has him sit opposite her at a table to complete some mundane task and fondle.
Alphabetizing the records is a very important task.
I just said that because I couldn't remember what it was.
I'm a mini Bree, and yet have a complete lack of concern for
When I was a child, that was part of the stipulation.
You had not gone on your journey of discovery.
So he has John sit opposite her at the table to alphabetize the things, and she fondles him under the table with her foot. Again, John, mother, same room. Wild. I'm waving my hands frantically right now.
He's not lying. But also a weird shot as well that this is, I think, the 5th shot of Gaby's feet in the episode. Oh. When you think about the opening montage, how we're only seeing Gaby's feet and then we're back to the foot again.
Oh, that's so interesting.
It's weird. I hate it here.
And then Susan shows up and accidentally knocks something off of a table. Classic clumsy Susan. Yep. And she bends down to pick it up and sees Gaby fondling John. And I was so excited when I realised, oh, this is the beginning of the end.
Yes. Erin can rest. You know, I'll sleep like a baby when this arc is over because I am so sick of pretending that this isn't the worst part of the show. Then, this is an interesting scene because I know you're going to say that you love Susan, and this is where I'm saying it's a bit of a mixed bag for me. Susan goes to Gaby's door and straight out the gate says, "Do you want to tell me why you had your foot in John Rowland's crotch yesterday?" Gaby says, "Oh, that," and tries to cover it, but Susan is having none of it. She says, "Gabrielle, he's in high school and it's illegal and you're married." All great points.
I just love there's no beating around the bush. We're straight to the point. And also, I feel like with the priest in the previous episode, I pointed out that he was more concerned about the affair aspect of it. So I think this is the first time someone's really directly said to Gaby, "You are breaking the law."
I slightly disagree. I think what I'm about to say is quite contradictory, but I see where you're coming from with that.
I do have a however in my notes, which I'm sure you're coming to. Yeah. But for that moment, yes. I was giddy with excitement.
Yes. And Gaby says it's just sex and it's harmless. And Susan kind of loses me a little bit by saying, "You know how I was with Carl, how could you do the same thing?" And the language of the same thing in particular is horrific to me. It is not the same thing that Gaby is being a sexual predator and sexually abusing a child. And also, Susan, it's not about you, baby.
Yeah, I wrote, however, Susan then immediately throws all the street cred she just gained with me in the bin by making it all about herself.
And she is mad about the wrong part of the equation. Yeah. She's completely undermining her own argument by saying, you know how it is to be somebody who's having an affair, and you know what it's like for the person who's on the other side of it and how heartbreaking that can be. It's nothing about John. It's nothing about John's feelings. It's nothing about the crime that she's committed. If anything, I'm like, why is no one saying to her, "You're a horrible, horrible person"? See episode 2, Ran.
Yeah, well, she kind of starts off strong like that. She does, unfortunately, then negate it. But, you know, with Susan, I feel like we just have to take the wins where we can. Again, bar floor.
Bar floor.
So Gaby then approaches John later, who tells her that it's over with Danielle and they can be together, yada yada.
Gaby reveals to John that Susan knows everything. And something that's important about this scene is the reason John is so excited that he dumped Danielle is because him and Gaby can finally be together. And I was feeling really sorry for John.
Yeah, as we should. He's the victim in this situation.
Absolutely.
John is playing basketball with his friend in their front yard. They've got like a hoop on the garage door. And the friend is wondering why John broke up with Danielle. John refers to his mystery woman, obviously meaning Gaby. And as they walk away, John's friend talks about how the fact he's doing a hot housewife will increase his social status at school. And unfortunately, as he says this, John's mum, Helen, is taking out the trash and overhears this comment.
John confronts Susan while she's illustrating, drawing, and Susan is very clear with John that in no scenario is Gaby leaving Carlos for him. And she even explains that part of it is financial. She says very plainly, and I love this line, "You are not mature enough to have a realistic perspective on this relationship." Snaps for Susan.
Snap ASMR.
But John confesses that he really loves her because John is 17. Susan kind of lovingly touches his face and Helen sees this and looks disgusted. Now, directorially, I understand. Why is Susan touching his face though? I get it because we had to have something that Helen could see and feel suspicious about. I did not like it.
I mean, I wrote that when he puts her hand on his cheek, it really is in a loving, motherly way. I mean, I think, again, because the actor for John looks like an adult, it's odd. If it was someone who genuinely looked 16, I think it would come across more as that motherly kind of way. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good point. That is a good point.
So we are now at the fashion show. Now, Carlos, we learn, had to back out due to a work emergency, so Tom has filled in as the MC. Backstage, Gaby is readying up Lynette and Bree, and the hair game of these ladies right now is unmatched. Bree in this pale pink dress kind of looks like Hermione at the Triwizard Ball.
Yes, it's the Yule Ball dress, 100%, and even the hair is mirroring that. And she is always dressed in pale pink, but she's never more fabulous in it than in this moment.
I love when the women's hairdo you get when they dress up for a ball and it's like their hair is a big ball on their head. Do you know what I mean? And you've got that little bit that comes down on their forehead and it's so nice. But Lynette and her backless number, phenomenal.
Tom is being the MC, but he has that weird cheesy energy of like a magician at a holiday park.
I really liked Tom as the MC.
I like him.
It was endearing.
He has a moment, but Lynette actually says that Tom has a bit of a dorky charm, and I do see it.
Yes.
Where's Edie Brett?
Oh my God.
And Edie has customized her dress. We have said on multiple occasions after the house fire that we can imagine her cropping her own t-shirts and making her own clothes, and she has done it for us.
Yeah.
And we get my quote of the week. Can you tell I'm not wearing any underwear? Yes. Good.
Yeah, my note was that she turns up in the dress that was meant for Martha, having sufficiently sluttified it.
Sluttified as a verb is excellent, Jakub, and I will be taking this forward. Thank you so much.
It's the only verb that Edie Britt needs. She loves it.
There is a bit of a weird thing about this for me. So all the women look incredible. And Susan comes in and she looks stunning. And the parallel between the dark outfit and the white outfit is very Black Swan, White Swan between her and Edie.
Erin, I've got to tell you, I really, really dislike Susan's dress.
Oh, I didn't like it. But
good.
I still think she looked good in it, if that makes sense.
Sure. I mean, she's an attractive lady in general. She'd have looked good in most dresses when she's, done up.
Yes.
But, I mean, the women act like she is the bride at the wedding. Like no one could possibly match her in this fashion moment. Well, let me tell you, everyone else looks better than her in this scene.
Gaby looks amazing in this blue. It's like a frosty blue, and it's on her it's on her eyeshadow. It's in her outfit, but equally frosty is the dynamic between Gaby and Susan.
Mm-hmm. So then we get our main gals on the runway. Bree is elegant and flows so perfectly. Lynette looks great, and Tom makes some flirty comments over the commentary.
I liked it.
Yeah, I thought it was very sweet. I mean, as useless as Tom is with the big stuff, I think all these little moments of affection are, first of all, I think he's the only husband who shows those kinds of moments of affection.
Yes.
And I really think that is the kind of thing that Lynette sees or perhaps saw in him when they first met.
Yes, absolutely. I would agree with that. It is very sweet to see them flirty.
Yeah. And then, oh my God, I'm not ready. Edie rocks the catwalk, having donned a full-length coat with a sort of blazery top half that have her legs poking out with every step. Honestly, she looks like she's ready for world domination. She takes off the coat seductively, and Tom, who is clearly reading a script for how the dress originally looked when it was meant for Martha, says in a confused tone that it looks perfect for a Sunday tea or christening.
I loved it.
I love Edie so much.
Helen is returning the dress because she is so distraught over hearing or suspecting that Susan and John are having an affair that she cannot participate in the fashion show anymore. But she runs into Susan all dolled up. And Helen gives the verbal slap that I think Gaby should have gotten, and I'm annoyed that she didn't. Which is, there's a special place in hell for people like you. And then Helen gives her a literal slap. She says to Susan, "You're an adult, take some responsibility." And then she shoves Susan. It's a girl fight.
Susan is so confused.
Yes.
It's very comical slapstick.
Helen rips Susan's dress skirt, and then very comedically, it's meant to seem, I suppose, she has to go out anyway, and she's all of her hair is now a mess. The dress is a mess. She is a mess, but Susan is brought out onto the runway. And it is horrifically humiliating, I think.
Yeah. And as everyone is awkwardly applauding her, but Edie has the most genuine grin on her face and is the only person applauding with sincerity, and it is perfect.
Edie says, "Oh, she's never looked better."
Also, I love when Susan and Helen are fighting, and at one point Susan's like, "For goodness sake, Helen, this is for charity."
I think that Terry Hatcher does a really good job in this scene with the confusion about Helen and why she's fighting her. And then it seems really funny, like a classic slapstick moment. Oh, Susan's going to look a mess. Terry Hatcher plays it so vulnerable that you do feel really, really sorry for her.
Which works because, obviously it's Gaby who deserved this, and it's come on to Susan. So it really helps with why she's with one of the many reasons why she is so mad at Gaby.
Absolutely.
And so then later, as Susan is getting changed backstage, Gaby approaches her and apologizes for what happened. And Susan basically needs her to tell Helen the truth before everyone in the neighborhood thinks she's sleeping with a child. Gaby doesn't want to, as it would get back to Carlos, but Susan is very unsympathetic, as she rightfully should be, and storms off.
It is very nice to hear someone like Susan, who doesn't seem like a strong, level-headed character, to say to Gaby in this moment, "God, you are so weak."
Yes. Again, love Susan this episode, and it's, earlier she had that moment which was a bit of a mixed bag, but as a whole, she has so many of these straight up direct moments, and I love it.
And I love the contrast between, if you put those characters aside even an episode ago, Susan and Gaby, and said who is the weak one and who's the strong one, most people would say Susan, but she's right. Gaby is weak, and Susan has been direct, and Susan has taken the heat. What I do find interesting, though, and I don't think I'm not going to talk about it as a character flaw of Susan's. I actually think it's a flaw in the writing. That I think it's weird that she has an understanding of how wrong it is that he's underage, but she is more emotionally hurt. I mean, maybe it's not weird. Maybe it's because that's such a raw wound for her that's the thing that's dominating, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, you can't help how you feel, I suppose.
Gaby goes to Helen and comes clean about sleeping with John. She says, "I'm the one sleeping with your son. I'm so sorry." And reveals that it was for almost a year. Helen says when it started, he was 16, and Gaby says, I think. Oh, Jakub.
It really genuinely seems like Gaby truly believes just apologizing is going to be able to let things be swept under the rug.
And also, I hate to bring this up again, but 15, which he might have been, because she's saying it was 15, 16 type of period, is the age at the beginning of the episode that Gaby had her stepfather visit her bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
And she cannot make the connection.
I think all this stuff with her stepfather is probably deeply repressed.
Yes. And obviously, the way that it happens with her stepfather, that we come to find out, is very different circumstances and a very different scenario, but she should be connecting the behaviours in some capacity. Helen is rightly out for blood, and she should be. Something that I thought was interesting about this episode is that much like Andrew, Gaby has not yet felt bad for what she has done. And that's why it's so frustrating. And even seeing her being somewhat, air quotes, punished by having to confess to Helen doesn't feel like enough.
You're right, it's certainly not enough, but I think I disagree about the comparison with Andrew. I think Andrew has genuinely not even objectively felt like what he's done was that wrong or whatever. I think we've seen moments with Gaby where she knows what she's doing is wrong. She just doesn't care. Gaby tries to reassure her that, oh, it's over now. And Helen's like, oh no, it's far from over.
Yes.
Love.
And also, it's not clear in this moment, and I think it's one of the reasons why it's such a frustrating confession from Gaby and a frustrating apology. I'm so sorry, is what she says. But what part of it is she sorry for?
Yeah, and really she should be apologizing to John.
Yes. Oh.
Yikes. So then that night, knowing that there is a strong chance that Helen will tell Carlos about her affair, she knew that she had to come clean with Carlos. She tries to tell Carlos the truth, who again we see is stressed about work. Boy's not having a good week. But she...
Much like me.
Yeah, unfortunately. So who do you think's having a worse week?
That's such a good question. Well, let's see how this scene goes.
Yeah, we'll see. So she backs out of telling him at the last second and just says that she's going to bed. And then she leaves the room. She sees a police car pull up and get out and head towards their door.
Oof.
Immediately panics, assuming Helen has turned her in. So she runs to Carlos, gets on her knees in front of him, and is desperately telling him that she loves him and is apologetic. Carlos is confused. She doesn't outright say what she's done. But then when the police get to the door, they arrest Carlos.
It's such a good misdirect.
Love.
And especially because we have seen in the episode this kind of background arc of Carlos having trouble at work and that he's getting frustrated with his business and he wasn't able to MC at the fashion show. And it's just subtle enough to foreshadow this. And it's not until you hear at the door that it's the FBI that I think that you have an inkling of, wait a minute, why are the FBI getting involved?
Yeah. As he's being taken away, he tells Gaby to call their lawyer, that he's innocent, that his boss Tanaka has set him up. And yeah, you're right. It's just enough hints that when this happens, you suddenly almost get a flashback in your mind to all of the scenes from this episode with Carlos.
It's great writing. The FBI seem to be seizing Carlos's computer, and Gaby looks genuinely worried for him.
Well, she's shaken because this, like, the whole rug's been pulled out from under her. There was no inkling for Gaby for this, so...
Absolutely. Then we get our final Mary Alice voiceover in a montage of moments. The fashion show is being taken down. Carlos is in the jail cell. Bree is walking past Andrew's room and he frostily shuts the door. Zach is secretly sleeping on Julie's bedroom floor. And Susan goes to be with Gaby, to be with her friend, as Gaby starts to cry on her doorstep.
What Mary Alice says in her voiceover is that people are complicated, that they can perform great acts of charity while also the most underhanded forms of betrayal. But what she's essentially saying is that we're all struggling between the angel and devil on our shoulders, and that sometimes the only way to ward off the darkness is to shine the light of compassion, which is what we see Susan doing. And again, I love Susan in this moment.
Yes.
Because you know, there's more to each of these characters than the good or bad things they do. And Susan can see all of that. I just really, really loved that.
And also when you love someone and they do something that you think is horrible or has disappointed you, sometimes other situations happen where that stuff kind of fades into background noise and fades into, well, this isn't the important thing. The important thing right now is to be there for this person in this moment. So it's Susan being a good friend. And I do think thus far, Susan has come out as a really good friend to these girls. I'm thinking about her chat to Lynette. I'm thinking about even something as subtle as at the dinner with Bree and Rex of her trying to change the topic and lighten the mood. She's a good friend. She's a bad mum, but she's a good friend.
We can't have it all.
We can't have it all.
Who is your worst neighbour?
I would say it's Martha for not showing up to the No, I'm kidding. Imagine. I am going to give worst neighbour to Paul. I don't like him trying to get Julie to kind of dob Zach in. I don't think as a neighbourly thing to do that's particularly great.
My worst neighbour might feel a little bit out of left field, but my worst neighbour is Lynette, purely because I don't have kids, but don't be coming for my nanny. That's just rude. Don't be poaching my nanny. I worked hard to find a good nanny, presumably in this hypothetical situation where I have kids and I live in a suburban lane.
I would feel that way, but the nanny seems to be being horrifically treated.
I wouldn't be treating my nanny horrifically.
Yes, you would. You'd be a monster.
I'm the monster of the week.
You're the monster of my life.
Feeling the fire of the fan theories.
Yeah. They're breaking up. No, I get that. What is interesting to me, though, is now that Julie the Vampire Slayer's big bad is gone. What this means for us. Because now, because of the scenes that we've had, hear me out, it seems to be a misdirect. And Paul is actually the big bad of the season in the Julie the Vampire Slayer story. Because what happened after Paul got rid of Martha? Well, actually, he was the bigger threat, and he is now trying to get information out of Julie.
I would agree.
I really liked this episode. I will say, excluding the Gaby arc, this was a filler. And I'm not against them. As you know, I have said on several occasions, I miss filler episodes of television.
I also like when we had the investigators come in. We've had several suspicious characters try and do their own covert investigating.
Yeah.
And this is the first time we've had legit investigators, and there's such a stark contrast, just in the complete lack of any suspicious vibes. It's just kind of funny to think about. Mike,
who is not in this episode, who is kind of our novice investigator, and we have police and we have FBI, and Mike's not here.
He's probably at the cinema. Oh, cinema!
Oh, yes, this is this is actually very important. I want to out Jakub on the pod. Because Jakub messaged me the other day asking if after the pod, because we don't spend enough time together, if I wanted to go with him to the cinema.
Well, as much as 17-year-old me would have loved it, this is not a first date with us, Erin. So, so I think that's fine.
Are you going to put on the moves?
Well, we'll find out.
We will find. We'll let you know next week. Yeah. I told you that Rory said this week, Jakub could just be playing a ridiculously long game.
All right, well then, let's go and get ready for the cinema, bestie.
Let's go get ready for the cinema. Thank you so much for listening. Stay desperate.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode. Be sure to check out our Instagram for visuals, behind-the-scenes content, and more.
You can find us by searching for Modded, that's MEWDYD.
Or just search for Mary Alice, What Did You Do?
This podcast is brought to you entirely by us, Erin McGee
and Jakub Tanzi. If you're enjoying the show, don't forget to leave us a review. It really helps us out.
Join us next time for another episode of Mary Alice,
What did you do?